Hi, in this tutorial we're going to talk about exporting student names and student information from SCRIBE and importing participation data into SCRIBE for Gear Up services. So you should have a handout that has basically the steps that I'm going to follow, so you can follow along with me in the handout, or you're more than welcome to follow along using your computer as well. So the first step is to go ahead and access SCRIBE. So I am going to go ahead and log into SCRIBE. Once I've logged into SCRIBE, well, let me give you a scenario first. Here is the service that is being delivered. My school is going on a college visit on August the 28th. They're traveling to UNM. They're going to be on the campus from 10 a.m. until 3 p.m. So that means the service is a 5-hour-long service. We are targeting 10th and 11th grade students for this college visit. I know that all of them aren't going to attend, but at least that's who we are inviting to this particular college visit. So like I said, I went ahead and logged into SCRIBE. Now that I'm in SCRIBE, what I'm going to do is I'm going to export the students from SCRIBE so that I can create a SARS using the students' names. So I'm going to go ahead and go to Reports, Export with Sensitive Information, Student Enrollment Export. So as I stated, we are inviting 11th and 12th grade students. My school name is Annandale High School, so I'm going to select my school. I'm going to select, I said 11th and 12th. We're actually inviting 10th and 11th grade students. And the rest of the information I'm going to just leave as it is defaulted. So if I were inviting 9th graders on this trip, I would select 9th graders and so forth. So go ahead and click on Generate Report, and Excel is going to open the file. And as you will see, we have lots of data that is being exported out of SCRIBE. We actually don't need all of this information. We only need kind of the bare minimum. So I'm going to go ahead and delete some of these columns. And I do that by clicking on the column heading for the column. So I'm deleting columns D through AK. So we'll delete all of those. So that leaves me with the student ID, first name and last name, and grade level. And then I actually don't need anything after grade level, so I'm going to go ahead and delete the remaining columns as well. So I'm selecting all of those columns, dragging over, right-clicking, and then selecting delete. Okay, so now that we are here, the next step is to take this information that's here and use this to create a pre-filled SARS. So I'm going to go ahead and open up my SARS. I'm going to split my screen between the two, my export file and my SARS document. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to generate my service name. So I'm going to use my service naming conventions to generate the service. So we're going on a one-time college visit to UNM, and my school district code is Annandale Public Schools. Okay. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select the service code. Like I said, we're going on a college visit, so that's CVS. The school name, supervised by. So I've got the first part of my SARS generated. The next step is to go ahead and copy and paste the first name, last name, and grade level of all of the students who I'm inviting to this college visit into my SARS. So I'm going to go ahead and copy these cells and paste them in the SARS document. The next thing I'm going to do, since I know when this college visit is, it's August the 28th, and we said it was a 5-hour college visit. Remember, that's how long we are on the college campus, does not include the drive time. And so I'm going to go ahead and pre-fill this information because it's a whole lot easier for me to pre-fill it than it is for someone to write it. For instance, let's say I didn't know who was coming on this college visit. What I could do is I could generate the SAR without the first name, last name, and grade level, and just pre-fill the date of participation and the hours of participation. So I'm going to go ahead and use the autofill feature in Excel. So I select the 2 cells that I want filled in all of my remaining columns. I make sure that my cursor is the skinny crossbar. It's not the fat crossbar. It's not a crossbar with an arrow on either end. It's the skinny crossbar with no arrows. And I'm going to drag down to fill in the date for all of those participants. I'm going to do the same thing for hours of participation. So at this point, my SARS document is ready to be printed and provided to Mr. Smith, who is supervising the students on this college visit. So the next step is I'm going to start working on turning my export file into my import file. So I'm going to follow the steps that are on the handout. So the first thing I'm going to do is in column A, I'm going to insert a column called External Service ID. So right-click on A, insert, and I'm going to call that External Service ID. Notice there are no spaces. The next thing I want to do is I'm going to turn column C and insert it, and I'm going to call this column Person Type ID. Column D, right-click, insert, school number. Again, notice there are no spaces. You have to be very sure, you have to be very good about checking your spelling, because if a word is spelled wrong when you do your import, the import will not be processed. So then column E, I'm going to insert. This will be our date of participation. And column F will be hours of participation. And I'm going to leave first name, last name, and grade level in my upload file. They're not required fields, but they'll help me when I'm putting participation into the computer. So I'm going to start filling in some of these columns. As we said when we were generating the SARS, we already know the date is August the 28th. We're going to go ahead and use that autofill feature again. And we know the hours of participation is 5 hours, so we're going to go ahead and autofill. The school number, I know my school number, so I'm going to go ahead and just input that school number. If you don't know your school numbers, please let me know and I'll be happy to provide that for you. So I'm going to use that autofill feature again. Person type ID. Person type ID is always going to be the number 1, the number 2, or the number 3. Person type, as you recall, can be a student or a teacher or a parent. And in this case, we are working with students, so person type ID is going to be 1. Okay. We have one field that we haven't filled in yet, and that's the external service ID. We have one field that we still need to fill, that's external service ID. Your external service ID is always going to match the service, the name of the service that you generate on the SARS document. 1t.cbs.unm.aps. We are going to use the autofill feature again. So now our file is the right format for the import. At this time, the service may not have taken place yet, so we don't know exactly who has attended and who hasn't attended. So once the service actually takes place, what we'll do is we will delete the rows of the students who did not participate, and then we will import the file. So I'm going to go ahead and save this. We are going to save it as, we're going to save it as the service name, which remember is 1t.cbs.unm.aps. We're going to add IMP on the end of it because it's an import. So at this point in time, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and go to Scribe, and we are going to create the service. So we're going to go to Services. We're going to go to Add Service. We're Annandale High School. Here up. You should not have to select this. This should be automatically selected for you. Hit Next. Our person type for this service is students. And then we are going on a college visit. So since it's a college visit, I have to type in the iPad's ID. You look that up on the website link that I'll provide. I'm going to go ahead and name my service. Remember, I've already generated the name. It's just a matter of remembering it and typing it correctly. The date, again, was August the 28th. It's when it started and ended. The external service ID is the service name one more time. And then the rest of these options are all, you just leave it in the default. You hit Save. So for those of you who were with Gear Up last year, you know that at this point, in order to put participation into Scribe, you click on participation and then you select each of the students' names and individually add the service hours. So we no longer have to do that when we're doing imports. Importing replaces that process. So it should be a much faster process for us. So now we're ready to get the SARs back from the person who supervised the service. And we're ready to update our import file so that it matches who actually attended and participated in the service. So Mr. Smith gave me back the SARS document, and you can see where he has crossed off several students, the dates and the hours for several students who did not participate. So what I need to do is I need to delete those students from my import file. So I am going to look at these documents side by side so that I can very easily compare and delete. You will probably have a hard copy of this document, so you would have that in front of you as you went through and deleted. So I see that Jesus Andrews and Enrique Barron did not participate, so I'm going to go ahead and delete their names, their rows, from my import file. And I do that by selecting the numbers for the rows, dragging down so that I capture both, and then right-clicking and selecting delete. So Jesus and Enrique are gone. I see Sarah Burton right here did not participate, so I'm going to delete the row that she's in. Going to look down here, I see Diane Holland did not participate. And I'm going to scroll to the second page, and I see that Raul, Dominic, and Toby did not participate. So I'm going to find their names here. Here they are. And I'm going to delete their rows. Scroll down a little bit more, and I see Jeremiah and Jorge did not participate, so I'm going to delete them as well. So at this point, what I could do is, I'll just do a rough count, and I can count the number of participants on the sign-in register, the SARS document. And I have 31 participants. So I can come over to my import file and make sure that I have 31 students listed on my import file, and I do. It says 32, and then I have one header row, which means 31. I'm going to go ahead and save this file. If you get this message that says some features in your workbook might be lost if you save it as a CSV, that's fine. Just go ahead and click yes. I'm going to go ahead and close my SARS because I don't need that anymore. So at this point, I'm ready to import the participation data into SCRIBE. I'm going to give my import file one more once-over, and I am going to just take a look at my column headings, make sure that I don't have any spaces, make sure that my column headings match the upload template that SCRIBE has. And I've made a mistake. So I forgot to change student ID to person ID. Something as simple as that can keep your import from being processed. So you want to make sure that you double check those column headings because it's very easy to make a mistake. I'm going to go ahead and save my file again. So I'm in SCRIBE. I'm going to go ahead and go to Import, which is under Tools. Going to select New Import. And this should be filled in for all of you, but you want to make sure that you select your district name, Gear Up, New Mexico. The import type that we're doing is service participation. Again, you should not have to select this. It should be pre-populated for you. And now we have to tell SCRIBE where our file is after we select the school year. So I'm going to click on Browse, and I'm going to find my file, which I believe I saved on the desktop. All right, so I've got my file selected. I'm going to click on Next. And what's going to happen now is SCRIBE is basically doing a pre-processing validation report. Before actually importing the data, it's going to give you some feedback about the file. And this is a good opportunity to check your work. So I see there are 3 fields that are unknown. That's okay. We don't need those fields. We knew that those names and grades did not have to be in there. We see the school number. We see the number of records. So we've got 31 records, which is what we anticipated. So at this point, the file is valid. So I'm going to go ahead and click the radio button next to File is Valid and click Save. So once this has been processed, we will get a pre-processing report. That's going to provide us feedback about the file one more time before it actually does the import. So these are all kind of safety checks that are in place so that you don't import something that you didn't mean to import. So as soon as I will receive an email from SCRIBE that's my pre-processing report, and I will continue at that point. I just received the email from SCRIBE indicating that the pre-processing step is complete. The email doesn't give me a lot of information, but it just indicates that it's time for me to log into SCRIBE to review my import. So I'm at the home screen in SCRIBE. I'm going to select Tools, Import. And from this screen, I'm going to find the import that I did, which was the 1T college visit UNM.APS. And I'm going to click on View. Okay, I've already seen the import details. The validation report is what was generated when I first initiated the import. I'm going to click on Pre-Processing Report, which again, it's the final check before data is actually imported. So I can just check my file name. I see that there were 31 records. Person type is student. The participation month is August, which is all correct. And then when I scroll to the bottom, I see the import summary. It tells me that there are 0 invalid records that are importable. There are 0 there are 0 invalid records that are not importable, so that's good. That means that all of our data is importable and nothing is considered invalid. Under status messages, I see that basically that the system does not recognize first name, last name, and grade level. That's okay, because we knew that those fields were not going to be recognized in SCRIBE because those are not required fields for this import. I'm okay with that. So all in all, this pre-processing report is a good report. It tells me that everything looks good. I'm going to go ahead and click on File is Valid, Advance to the Import step. I could select the import will be deleted, or I could revalidate the field. But at this point, everything looks good, so I'm going to select File is Valid, Advance to the next, to the import step. In this step, the import is actually going to be done. So I click Save, and just like before, I'm going to wait for an email from SCRIBE telling me that the import is complete. All right, I just received the SCRIBE email saying that my import is complete. So I'm going to go ahead and access SCRIBE and view the report. So I've already logged in. I'm going to go to Tools, select Import, and then I'm going to look for my file, which is right here. I'm going to select View next to the file name, and I'm going to select the final import report. This report is just confirming that all of my data was imported. So I can see my file name and the date processed. The important part again is the import summary. I can see there are 0 invalid records that were imported, 0 invalid records not imported. There were 31 modified records, which means that 31 participants had participation data added. There were 31 records that were modified and saved. There were 0 unmodified records. And then I have my status message here, which is again pointing out that first name, last name, and grade level weren't processed because they were not in the upload template. All right, so at this point, my participation data has been imported. What I can do now is I can go to Services, View All Services. So I'm going to just double check my import. Going to select View next to the service name, and if I select Participation, I should be able to see the students who participated, which I can see right here. So at this point, I would click on Activity Report, which is just above the participant's name, and I could save this and email this to the program coordinator. It verifies that there were 31 students who participated on a college visit on August the 28th, and they spent 5 hours participating in this particular service. So this is yet another check and balance that you can use to verify that your data is being input correctly. Thank you for your time, and I appreciate your attention.